Make sure it's actually working first. One moment. Test, 1, 2, 3.
Test 1, 2, 3.
All right. Looks like it's working.
All right. Looks like it's working.
Sick. All right. Just got to post this to the Discord, but Ave, Ave, true to Christ. Hey, everybody, this is Charitable Christianity, and today, or David Oscar Romero, I'm going to be talking about Proverbs 15. I'm going to be reading it. So, just a heads up for you guys, if you hear my huskies, they're being brothers and fighting with each other, so they might they might come out and start wrestling. So just don't be too surprised if that happens. But if you guys want to join my Discord to hear extended thoughts on the Mass every day, because I try to go every day, click the description down below, go to the Discord. You can also join in tomorrow, 1 p.m. PDT. I'll be doing a Bible study that isn't like this, but it's going to infuse what I've learned in Protestantism and in Catholicism to make a fun, dynamic study that anybody from any denomination can come in and join with us. So anyways, I'm going to be reading out of 10 Bibles, so there's going to be a lot of reading. If you guys get bored, I get it. But I do this, for my own self to study the Bible, but also in case there's other people that want to study or have some background noise or have some biblical ASMR, So starting off, we're going to, and a reminder, I'll read from the Bible. I'll do any thoughts that come to me, and then I'll read the study notes if there's study notes, speak about any thoughts that come to me, and then move to the next Bible. But the first Bible is going to be the KJV Study Bible. So the contrast of goodness and evil continued. A soft answer turneth away, and this is Proverbs 15. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. The eyes of the Lord are in every... Oh, shoot. I just realized I should just put it all on the screen. Here, let me get that set up. I know I was forgetting something. These ads are so gross. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a big fan of ads. Ads are super gross. Okay, and then I'll get that on the screen. Okay, make sure it's on there. There we go. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness therein is a breach in the spirit. A fool despiseth his father's instructions, but he that regardeth reproof is prudent. In the house of the righteous is much treasure, but revenues of the wicked is trouble. The lips of the wise disperse knowledge, but the heart of the foolish doeth not so. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. The way of the wicked is an abomination unto the Lord, but he loveth him that followeth after righteousness. Correction is grievous unto him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. Hell and destruction are before the Lord. How much more than the hearts of the children of men? A scorner loveth not one that reproveth him, neither will he go unto the wise. A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken. The heart of him that hath understanding seeketh knowledge, but the mouth of fools feedeth on foolishness. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but he that is of merry heart hath a continual feast. Better is the little with fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble therewith. Better is the dinner of herbs where love is than a stalled ox and hatred therewithin. A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife. The way of the slothful man is a hedge of thorns, but the way of the righteous is made plain. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish man despiseth his mother. Folly is joy to him that is destitute of wisdom, but a man of understanding walketh uprightly. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors they are established. A man hath joy by answer of his mouth, and words spoken in due season. How good it is it? The way of life is above the wise, that he may depart from hell beneath. The Lord will destroy the house of the proud, but he will establish the border of the widow. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasant words. He that is greedy of grain troubleth his own house, but he that hateth gifts shall live. The heart of the righteous studieth to answer, but the mouth of the wicked poureth out evil things. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he heareth the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoiceth the heart, and the good report maketh the fat bones fat. The ear that heareth the reproof of life abideth among the wise. He that refuseth the instruction despiseth his own soul, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Lord, I ask that you give us all clarity and understanding in what we're reading today. But if that isn't made clear enough for our limited capacity and intellect, I ask that you embolden our trust in you, that you will deliver the message that needed to be heard today, and not that we have to get the whole message of what you're speaking in Scripture. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So, two things that we got to realize is with the KJV, they use old timey-wimey language. So there are some cultural epithets, not epithets. There are some cultural euphemisms that we may miss when we're reading in the old form of language. So that's an important thing to think about when we're talking about this. But the second thing that we want to think about is, we want to go down and just kind of do a quick read and see if anything sticks out to us. That's usually what I like to do with the Proverbs and Psalms, because especially the Proverbs, you can see like a lot of different sentences, and this is just a compilement of wisdom essentially. So a lot of the things that I noticed with this is that there's a lot of what Jesus talks about of repaying evil with good. Be slow to speak, quick to listen, making sure that you aren't speaking wickedness out of your mouth, making sure that you aren't being greedy, lustful, and wicked in the way you do business with other people and the way you approach relationships with other people. All of that is a pretty consistent theme here. But one of the interesting things that comes with wickedness is, people will say that, oh, therefore you can't curse, meaning curse words like fuck, shit, bitch, those kind of words. And generally being formal requires you to not use that kind of language, but we're not always in a formal setting. And it really depends on the intent and how you're using it. Because if you tell someone, go fuck yourself, well, what's the intention that you have there? Are you telling them that because it's like you're saying, well, I'm done with hearing you and I don't like what you're saying, or I'm tired of listening to this, we're done? Or do you mean go harm yourself and I hope something bad happens to you? Because those are two different, very different contexts. But it doesn't mean that just because you said the word, that means that you're speaking wickedness. But going on with what's saying in here, there's also the idea of reproof that comes up a lot. The fool despises his father's instruction, but he that regardeth reproof is prudent. So, when somebody buffers you or somebody gives you a fraternal or maternal correction or somebody gives you constructive criticism, the fact that you're open to it and you're not going to be so neurotic and you're not going to be so um, absorbed into your own ego, you're going to be able to actually gain something from the instruction and from the advice that other people are giving to you. There's the way of the wicked, he that loveth them follow after righteousness. And that's why we need to give up everything to follow the Lord. There's a lot of holdovers from our human nature and from the wicked ways that is buried deep in our hearts that are still there even if we come to God. We have to let go of that and not get so attached to the possessions and people and things of this world to follow God. I thought this one was interesting. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a stalled ox and hatred therewith. Surround yourself with good people that raise you up, that don't break you down. Because if you have a mocker or somebody who hates reproof, lives foolishly, you got to realize that you are a product of the 5 people that you allow in your life and spend most of your time with. So, in my situation is interesting because a lot of my friends that I spend time with, more time with anyways, are all Catholic online. But my personal friends that I hang out with in my own life, um, a lot of them are either Protestant or atheist. And so you need to be careful with how you are spending time with people, because there's nothing wrong with having a friend um, that's atheist or a friend that's Eastern Orthodox or a friend that's Protestant. But you do have to make sure that you are setting proper boundaries and that you are being internally consistent with the way you go about logic, because they can easily sway your thoughts and the enemy can use that to take you down a road that's going to lead you into foolishness. So the heart of these two, that he that is greedieth of grain troubleth his own house, but he that hateth gifts shall live. Um, if you are really determined to gain things and you're very materialistic, you're going to bring trouble and you're going to bring misfortune because you're so selfish and you're so caring more of those gifts or those things that you kind of forget the point of what's going on. And then if you hate the gifts and you detach yourself from them, still honor the gifts that people are giving you, but don't be so dependent or so attached to them, and be willing to let them go. And that kind of goes with what I was talking about earlier. And this is another one. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he heareth the prayer of the righteous. So if you have somebody that is wicked in their heart and they're asking for things with malice and they are asking with the wrong state of heart, it's pretty easy for God to be like, you're asking for something evil. You're asking for something I'm not going to listen to because you're being a butthead. But the prayer of the righteous is going to be not only more powerful, as we see in James, but it's going to availeth much, is what we see in James. It's going to have more of a power than somebody that's a cultural Christian. And then, of course, the fear of the Lord is the instruction of the wisdom, and before honor is humility. And these are really important because having a fear of the Lord, I used to think that when people said fear of the Lord, they meant that he's a tyrant and that you need to learn to fear him properly. But to fully understand the fear of the Lord, you should have a fear of what's to come if you disobey him. But just because you have that fear doesn't mean that that's the only part of it. To have the fear of the Lord also means that you understand the consequences and you accept those completely. And that's why I've always taken the stance of, if I lose my life, I'm not as attached to my life, because it's God that will bring me to him. And if I didn't stack up to the standards that he had for me, and he judged me to go into hell, I would accept it. And some people would be like, no, you wouldn't. You would be begging on the ground. But with the life I've lived, I understand that I've been nothing but a prodigal son, and that I've done nothing worth or meritorious of heaven. And so I fully accept that I deserve to go to hell if Jesus Christ says so. That's how I live my life every day. I accept that I could go to hell for any action that I'm doing in the day. And there's a peace in that. And that is what the fear of the Lord is. You should have that fear of what's to come if you are misbehaving and the consequences, but you need to have a full acceptance that what God is saying and what God is judging you with is true and righteous. And if you don't believe that completely in your heart, it doesn't matter if you have an unhealthy or healthy fear of the Lord, like an emotional fear of the Lord and the consequences. You need to have more than just that. And before honor is humility, which is what you need to have that assurance. If I didn't have the humility I have, then I wouldn't be able to overcome that. But anyways, in the study notes, we have Proverbs 15, 1-4. The ability to avert quarreling and to live in harmony with others is a virtue of wisdom. A wise person knows how to pursue, how to speak gently, appealingly, and truthfully. Proverbs 15:9. God hates the religious practices of the wicked. What pleases God the most is not religious ceremony, but let me turn off the screen. All the ads are driving me nuts. God hates the religious practices of the wicked. What pleases God most is not religious ceremony, but the heart that pursues righteousness all the time. Proverbs 15, 10-12. God will allow a fool to suffer complete consequences for all his actions. Those who do not repent under this discipline and continue to reject it will die. This death could refer to a spiritual death alone, but Proverbs makes it clear that both physical and spiritual death are included in the consequences. How foolish it is to reject correction. Proverbs 15, 13-14. A person's focal point should always be the heart and nothing else. A person cannot control his experience with the world from the outside in. It has to be from the inside out. A wise person seeks to understand the world from God's point of view, which brings joy to the heart. Proverbs 15, 15-17. A happy heart has a continual feast. In fact, to have a heart feasting on the joy, fear, and love of the Lord is better than a literal feast. And I think that brings up a good point of everything we should be doing should be giving honor and worship to God. So if we are treating others terribly, now you have to think about the intent of insults, because somebody who is of a foolish, debased mind will take something that they perceive as an insult and try to use whatever moral legalism that they believe about Christians to try and get them to not use insults, because they perceive it as an insult, and so therefore it's an insult. Whereas, the intent of what we're saying might have spirit-taught words involved in it, might have a deeper meaning, or might have not actually have malice in what we're saying. So, anyways, anytime you're doing anything, you should be asking God what he wants you to do. And this is where you see a huge divide between low church Protestantism, high church Protestantism, and Catholicism, where in low church Protestantism, You see a lot of people praying, asking God for guidance, and then they will take that and then run with it with their own interpretation to justify any action that they deem as close to what is scripturally found or based in. And so they completely tiptoe God's direction because they're so focused on their own interpretation of everything. And they just read it through their subjective and emotional truth. But then the high church Protestant, you're going to be looking at someone who still has like a better grounding than you would have low church Protestants, but everything they're doing with God still lacks the same kind of grounding or a normative translator that you would expect to find a proper interpretation. When you get to Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, now you're getting into something that is structured, that has an infallible interpreter, and allows you to be able to have a better idea of what God is saying without falling into that subjective truth problem. Now, the next book that we're going to be going to is going to be the Dewey Rhymes Bible, but this one has the same translation as the KJV, so I'm not going to be reading it. I'm just going to be reading the notes, if there are any. There are not. Yep, there are not. All right, so the next one is going to be the OSB Bible, the Orthodox Study Bible. And I think they have this one on Bible Gateway. They have the Orthodox Jewish Bible, Oy vey. Yeah, that's not the same. So we'll just read it. So, Proverbs 15, wrath destroys even men of discernment, but a humble answer turns away anger. And a grievous word stirs up wrath. The tongue of the wise understands good things, but the mouth of those without discernment proclaims evil things. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. They keep watch over both the evil and the good. The healing of the tongue is a tree of life, and the one who guards it will be filled with the Spirit. A son without discernment treats instruction of his father with contempt, but the one who guards his commandments is more astute. In abundant righteousness there is much strength, but the ungodly shall utterly perish from the earth. In the houses of the righteous there is much strength, but the fruits of the ungodly shall perish. The lips of the wise are bound by perception, but the hearts of those without discernment are not safe. The sacrifices of the ungodly are an abomination to the Lord, but prayers of the upright are acceptable with him. The ways of the ungodly are an abomination to the Lord, but he loves those who pursue righteousness. The instruction of the simple is known by those who pass by, but those who hate reproofs will die shamefully. Hades and destruction are manifest before the Lord. How can the hearts of men not be also? An uninstructed man will not love those who reprove him, and he will not keep company with the wise. When one's heart is glad, his face is cheerful, but when it is in grief, his face is sad. The upright heart seeks perception, but the mouth of the uninstructed will know evil things. The eyes of evil men are waiting for the evil things of all the time, but good men are at rest continually. Better is the small portion with the fear of the Lord than the treasures with lack and fear. Better is the dinner of herbs with friendship and grace than the fated calf with hostility. An angry man stirs up contention, but the long-suffering man even calms the rising quarrel. A long-suffering man will extinguish condemnations, but the ungodly man stirs up more. The ways of idle men are strewn with thorny plants, but the thorny plants of the courageous are worn smooth. A wise son gladdens a father, but a son without discernment treats his mother with contempt. The paths of one without understanding are in need of discernment, but a man with discernment walks uprightly. Those not honoring the counsels defer their deliberations, but the counsels remain in the hearts of those who resolve to do it. The evil man will not obey counsel, nor will he speak anything appropriate, even something for the common good. The thoughts of the wise man are his ways of life, that he might turn aside and be saved from Hades. The Lord will destroy the houses of the arrogant, but he will strengthen the boundary of a widow. The thinking of the unrighteous man is an abomination to the Lord, but the words of the holy are sacred. He who receives bribes utterly destroys himself, but he who hates the receiving of the bribes saves himself. Sins are cleansed by almsgiving and faithfulness, and by the fear of the Lord everyone turns aside from evil. The hearts of the righteous care about faithfulness, but the mouth of the ungodly answers evil things. The ways of righteous men are acceptable before the Lord, and through them even enemies become friends. God is far from the ungodly, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. Better is the small yield with the righteous than abundant fruits with the unrighteous. Let the hearts of a man think. Uh, Let the heart of a man think righteous things, that he may make his steps straight under God. The eye that beholds good things gladdens the heart, but a good report enriches the bones. He who rejects instruction hates himself, but he who gives heed to reproofs loves his soul. The fear of God is instruction and wisdom. So, immediately, what stood out to me in this one is the one before, is around verse 15. It was verse 13 and 15. An uninstructed man will not love those who reprove him, and he will not keep company with the wise. The upright heart seeks perception, but the mouth of the uninstructed will know evil things. And immediately this made me think of Protestantism because, when I was in Protestantism, I wasn't pushed to find any deeper meaning in the faith. I was just basically told to go to mass once a week on Sundays. My pastor would give me a sermon that'd be 30 minutes to an hour learning about some lesson and deepening my understanding of scripture. And then that's kind of it. Like maybe they would recommend like a book or two that I could read to deepen my understanding, but there wouldn't be any normative understanding of scripture. It would all be subjective and feelings based and kind of like trying to guide you through your own interpretation of what the Bible is. And it's not like an intentional thing that they're trying to deceive you or get you to self-deceive yourself. But it's that when you're uninstructed, you're going to not look towards the wise, you're going to look towards the wicked. When you're uninstructed, you're not going to know the differences between things. You're going to make up lies in your head about your brothers and sisters. You're going to make up things that aren't there. And so that's why it's so important to, focus on things like Proverbs 15:13 and Proverbs 15:15. But the study notes for the Orthodox Study Bible say, for Proverbs 15:1, even men of discernment lose their discernment if they respond in kind to the anger of others, for this response clouds their ability to understand a matter. But a humble answer manifests a calm spirit and allows truth to penetrate the situation. 15:3, the eyes of the Lord are in every place because he fills all things. He observes both the evil and the good. The evil are good by nature, but evil by choice. And he sees these choices. The good are good by nature and by choice. And he also sees this. 15:4, the spirit of wisdom is the Holy Spirit. He is everywhere present and fills all things. Those who partake of his fullness use their tongues to heal others and are a tree of life to them. Perception is the crown of the wise, and it helps them to control their use of their lips. But the hearts of those without discernment are not safe to others because their mouths are out of control. 15:13, an uninstructed man does not know the wisdom and his instruction. Thus he will not love those who reprove him, nor will he keep company with the wise people, because he chooses to live in the deceptions of his own sins. 15:15 An upright heart is one that knows wisdom and his virtues. Thus, he chooses to seek these virtues, such as perception, one of the general virtues. But the uninstructed are those who live in the deceptions of their own vices, as they know evil things. 15:18 to 21, the passages read during Tuesday Vespers in the fifth week of Great Lent. And that's it for the study notes there. So this was the Orthodox Study Bible. This is the third Bible we've already read through. But with that, it's really important that you embrace yourself in knowledge, no matter what denomination you come from. Knowledge is so important, because if you are uninstructed and you are ignorant of things, it becomes easy to be like, all Protestants are rock concerts, and all Protestants are just like, all they do is they just interpret the Bible themselves. But there's more nuance to that, and we got to be fair in how we're judging people. It's the same thing if you go to a Catholic mass and you're like, they only have a 15-minute homily and they don't know anything. I am a Catholic. I'm part of the Roman Catholic Rite, but right now I'm doing a, by the way, if you guys didn't see it, Chemistry 7689 was asking what denomination you are. I'm a Catholic, part of the Roman Catholic Rite, but starting this week, I'm going to different churches except for Wednesday and Sunday. But I'm going to the Byzantine Rite on Fridays, the traditional Latin Mass on Saturdays, and then the rest of them are the Roman Rite. But yeah, what ethnicity? What ethnicity do you think I am? While you're answering that, I'll tell you once you answer it. But these are all important to make sure that you are staying informed. You don't want to judge people maliciously. You don't want to just assume everything that you think you know about a person. And you want to make sure that you are staying true to who God made you to be. And you're only going to be able to do that if you're equipping yourself with the world. I mean, that's definitely one of them. I am white, I am native, and I am South Asian. A weird combination, bro. I have like little splashes of Hispanic in me, but it's not enough for me to be like, yeah, I'm that race. But I'm sorry, you said ethnicity. I'm American, or did I? I think I. Yeah, I'm pretty sure ethnicity is more location of where you're from. Maybe I'm dumb. Let me double check that. Ethnicity definition. I guess so. I guess kinda. My nationality is American, but my ethnicity, I definitely come from a mixed white and native culture. So my grandmother is half native. My uh, my dad's side comes from Arizona. So, but they're mostly white. They have native in them too, but mostly white. Thank you for the questions, by the way. All right. So the next Bible is going to be the Reformation Study Bible. And this one is this the ESV translation? Yes, this is the ESV translation. So I'm going to put that on the screen. Turn off that. The going to drive me nuts though. All right, so we are going to go to the ESV. All right. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouths of fools pour out folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. A fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent. In the house of the righteous there is much treasure, but trouble befalls the income of the wicked. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, not so the hearts of fools. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but prayer of the upright is acceptable to him. The way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but he loves him who pursues righteousness. There is severe discipline for him who forsakes the way. Whoever hates reproof will die. Sheol and Abaddon, uh, Abaddon. I always suck at reading this one. I'm just going to say Abaddon. Lie open before the Lord. How much more the hearts of the children of man? A scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise. A glad heart makes a cheerful face, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is crushed. The heart of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but the cheerful of heart has a continual feast. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Better is the dinner of herbs, where love is than a fattened ox and hatred with it. A hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets contention. The way of the sluggard is like the hedge of of thorns, but the path of the upright is a level highway. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish man despises his mother. Folly is a joy to him who lacks sense, but a man of understanding walks straight ahead. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. To make an apt answer is a joy to a man, and a word in season. How good it is! The path of life leads upward for the prudent, that he may turn away from Sheol beneath. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but maintains the widow's boundaries. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but gracious words are pure. Whoever is greedy for an unjust gain troubles his own household, but he who hates bribes will live. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and good news refreshes the bones. The ear that listens to give life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. Whoever ignores instruction despises himself, but he who listens to reproof gains intelligence. The fear of the Lord is instruction in wisdom, and humility comes before honor. Now, this is a lot similar to the KJV and the Dewey Rhymes DRA versions that we read. And the reason that the Orthodox Study Bible is so different is because they use I think they use the Didache for the translation. So it is a little bit different. But two things that stood out to me on this reading was where are you? So a hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets contention. And a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish man despises his mother. So that's verses 18 and 20. And the reason those stood out to me this time is because, with a hot-tempered man, if you are slow to listen but quick to speak, you're going to easily be taken over by your passions. And since men were built with a lot of power and they were built with a lot of authority that they get in society, you can be misusing that really easily. Especially if you're more of a leader and people look up to you, if you are always going all around with hot passion and you're living the subjective truth, people are going to be at the whims of your feelings, and you're going to be so absorbed in yourself that you're not really going to be able to help or lead other people. And so this is why if you show up as a leader and you're slow to anger, there's not a lot that they can work with you. They're still going to persecute you. They're still going to come up with things on why you're dumb, you're evil, you're this, that, or the other thing. But if you are heaping burning coals of shame on them by repaying evil with good, it really disarms them in a way that's always fun to watch for me. But yeah, that's it on that. Let me remove the screen here so I can get back to questions. So, Christ, is it like Christ Terry or Christ Terry? I don't know how you pronounce it, but they were asking, can you please explain why a non-Caucasian should convert to a? I'm. Let me take my glasses off for this. What? What? Um, I don't know if you knew this, but Catholicism is heavily Hispanic. It is a very and it's also very culturally Hispanic as well. But there's a huge Hispanic culture when it comes to Catholicism. You know, a lot of people like to say that Christianity is the white man's religion. That's Protestantism that you're talking about. Protestantism is going to be the wider version of Christianity that you're looking for. Um, Orthodoxy is going to be more Eastern European, which doesn't exactly mean it's white. It's well, I don't know if it's Eastern European, but it's definitely a more European focused type of thing. But you know, let me grant you that. Let's say that Catholicism is a white religion. Let's just go with that. It's very Caucasian. The reason that you should be going into it isn't for any ethnicity or racial or nationality reason. You want to go because for the 5 reasons I talked about in my short today on the, why Catholicism helps your mental illness. And that was because you're receiving the body and the blood of the Lord. So you want to go to an Eastern Orthodox church or Catholic church because they are doing the sacraments properly in giving the body and blood of the Lord. They are um, in in um, in Nicaea 2. That's where we find out that the church has found that the Eastern Orthodox actually does efficacious um, sacrament. So receiving the body and blood of the Lord is going to recharge you spiritually. It's going to give you power to get through your week. Now, in the Our Father prayer, there's the receive our daily bread. Ideally, you want to be going to daily mass so you can receive the daily bread and empower you. But that's one reason. Another reason is because the mass has 2 readings that usually come from the Old Testament and then a gospel reading that, well, I guess the first readings come from the Old Testament and parts of the New Testament, but the gospel reading is coming from the 4 gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And that's going to give you grounding for the day to defend yourself against I call it in the shorts, the defense against the dark arts. I thought that was a funny thing that I said. But you want to make sure that you are also being there because the priest is going to do a homily that's going to teach you um, what what how to properly interpret that verse, and it's going to equip you with more knowledge. Um, the 4th reason is that you get silence if you come 30 minutes to an hour early, and that's going to help reset and rewire your brain in a way that Protestantism and going to other forms of Christianity, you know, not talking about Eastern Orthodoxy, but other forms of Christianity are just not going to give you the same kind of silence that you really need that we are lacking in this day and age. And then the 5th reason, what was the 5th reason that I said in the short? Uh, I can't remember the 5th reason I said in the short, but the 6th reason I gave was confession. Confession is something that's going to help you with guilt and trauma, and it's going to help you own up to your sins and treat yourself better and learn to love yourself better. Um, so you're going to go with the colonizer. Okay, you're going to go with the colonizer perspective, where you're going to talk about how um, things were forced on other people, and I would be careful with that because Protestantism isn't any better. Now, I mean, if we're going to compare, Catholicism probably is going to be uh, more culpable for the amount of people that they've hanged or called heretics or whatnot. Um, but we also got to realize that Protestantism did it too, and all religions in the world have enforced some sort of really barbaric um, colonization or forceful um, uh, using force to get them to adhere to whatever their belief structure is. So, if we start pointing to the past and being like, well, they did these things, so this is why it's actually a white religion or anything like that. What I'm trying to say is like, let's get away from that, because when we focus too much on that, we get away from Christ Church, which is, we want to focus on Christ, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons that you want to become any denomination. Um, and in you saying, is it true? I am not as studied on that, so I don't know the exact details on it. So I'm not the guy who could really tell you in that. I'm not a history buff there. My little brother probably could, but because he's more into Catholic history. But um, like I said, I'm just going to go with the assumption that we'll grant that you're right, and still discuss it from that perspective, and kind of show you the logic of how, even though that might be a true fact of history, why you should still go with the Catholic Church. Which I don't think I answered it before, but to answer your question, why would you still want to be Catholic even in the face of that? Because you're going to get the truest form of Christianity. You're going to have a structure that's really good for you, and you're going to have a nominal interpreter that's going to prevent you. For the most part, you can still fall into sin, but it's going to be harder if you're actually participating in the church and you're actively trying to open your heart to God. It's going to be harder for you to fall into making your own interpretations and making man-made traditions. Um, And you're right, that's why I was like, I didn't wanna do a tu quoque fallacy of being like, "Well, yeah, Protestants did it too, so that doesn't matter that Catholics did it." That's why I was like, "No, it does matter that Catholics did that." Um, but that's also why I frame that, all religions have done that at some point, so we gotta be careful in how we're structuring our arguments, because if we start holding too much on the past, it kind of gets into like when people are like, I don't want to support any company that has blood diamonds, that they use other people in other countries and put them in terrible conditions and working conditions to get us the products that we have in America. And if you dig deep into it, you're going to find out that most companies are doing that. And so it's going to be really hard for you to live your life um, with products that you would have to do a lot of work sourcing, whether they came from terrible origins or not. But thank you again for the great questions. I'm glad that you are, challenging me, and that you are bringing anything that is kind of like coming to mind. I think that this is fun. So the study notes for the Reformation Study Bible says, uh, oh, we have a note here, the omniscience of God. The word omniscience means, quote, to all, or omni, knowledge or science, end quote. It is a term that is properly applied to God alone. Only a being that is infinite and eternal is capable of knowing everything. The knowledge of a finite creature is always limited by a finite being. God, being infinite, is able to be aware of all things, to understand all things, and to comprehend all things. He never learns anything or acquires new knowledge. The future, as well as the past and present, are completely known by him. He is surprised by nothing, because God's knowledge far exceeds our knowledge. It is of a higher sort. Some Christians believe that his thinking differs radically in kind from ours. For example, it has become commonplace for Christians to assert that God operates with a different form of logic than ours. This concept is convenient when we run into snags in our theology. If we find ourselves affirming both poles of a contradiction, we can alleviate our tension by appealing to God's different order of logic. We can say with ease, quote, "This may all be contradictory to us, but it isn't in the mind of God," end quote. This kind of reasoning is fatal to Christianity. Why? If God, in fact, has a different order of logic whereby what is contradictory to us it's logical to him, then we have no reason to trust a single word of the Bible. Whatever the Bible says to us could then mean its exact opposite to God. In God's mind, good and evil may not be opposites, and the Antichrist might really be Christ. God's superior knowledge allows him to be able to resolve mysteries that baffle us, but that points to a difference of degree in God's knowledge, not a difference in the kind of logic he uses, because God is rational. Even he cannot reconcile contradictions. God's omniscience also grows out of his omnipotence. God is not all knowing simply because he has applied his superior intellect to a sober study of the universe and all its contents. Rather, God knows all because he created all and he has willed all. As a sovereign ruler over the universe, God controls the universe. Though some theologians have tried to separate the two, it is impossible for God to know all without controlling all, and it is impossible for him to control all without knowing all. Like all attributes of God, they are codependent, two necessary parts of the whole. God's omniscience, like his omnipotence and his omnipresence, also relates to time. God's knowledge is absolute in the sense that he is forever aware of all things. God's access, quote unquote, information, like a computer might retrieve a file. All knowledge is always directly before God. God's knowledge of all things is a two edged sword. For the believer, the idea offers security that God is in control, that he understands. God is not puzzled by those problems that puzzle us. For the unbeliever, however, the doctrine highlights the fact that people cannot hide from God. Their sins are exposed. Like Adam, they seek to hide. However, there is no corner of the universe that God's gaze, either in love or wrath, fails to reach. The omniscience of God is also a crucial part of God's promise to bring about the justice in the world. For a judge to render a perfectly just verdict, he must know all the facts. No evidence is hidden from the scrutiny of God. All mitigating circumstances are known to him. So, in that, it's really interesting because I was doing a video on the articles of faith that they have in this Reformation Bible, and the one I read, I agreed with it so much that I was like, I'm literally just reading this. There's no point for me posting the video because it's it's a pretty solid document, and that was Apologetics by Nicholas J. Nichols. But in that, it was interesting because he was talking about the philosophy and how philosophy of God has developed over time. And I find that interesting because I took a philosophy class, like a 101 philosophy class in college. And I found it endlessly fascinating and how people came to logic their way to understanding God. And you know, the more I become Christian, the more it's become silly when atheists tell me that, the Big Bang is what made the universe. Because I'm a scientific guy. I came from atheism, and it made sense to me. But really, you got to realize that you're saying that because the idea with the Big Bang that came from Catholic scientists, by the way, which is really funny, is two atoms came together that were reactive to each other and then caused the Big Bang, and that's a very simplified version of it. But basically, then you would have to explain, well, where did these hitting of these reactive atoms come from? And there has to be a first mover in it, otherwise it doesn't make sense. What we It doesn't make sense at all what is happening with what we're explaining. So logically, there has to be some sort of first mover, and this is what we learned from Socrates and Aristotle, and it continues to develop in wrapping your head around this in Anselm of Canterbury and Rene Descartes, and they basically make an easy logic of, well, if these are true facts about the world, and it presuppositionally proves that God would have to therefore be in the world, this is the logic that follows, and I found it really interesting. Um, maybe I can find it real quick because I thought it was fascinating. It's okay. So the logic that was presented was, one, we have an idea that a being, an idea of a being that is greater that can be conceived. Two, to exist in reality is greater than the existence in the mind. Three, if greater than can be conceived being only exists in my mind, then given point number two, it cannot be greater than conceived. Four, since we have the idea of being given point number two, the being therefore exists. And then the other argument, one, every effect has an equal or greater cause. Two, the universe is an effect. Therefore, the universe had a cause. And then the last logic puzzle is, one, if God did not exist, objective moral standards would not exist. Two, objective moral standards exist. Therefore, God exists. So, those are interesting ways to approach God, and I think that it's very fascinating how you can approach God with logic. But moving on to the study notes, Proverbs 15:1, the power of words to build up or destroy relationships is stressed here in verses 2, 4, 7, 14, and 23. 15:3, eyes of the Lord. The sages sometimes looked beyond the observable events and natural retribution to remind themselves of the reality of the divine justice. 15:4, a conciliatory tongue mends relationships. Breaks the spirit, destroys morale and self-esteem. 15:5, humble teachability. I don't know why they put a dash there. Humble teachability is, humble teachability because I'm because I'm illiterate. Humble teachability is the mark of the wise, but I'm definitely not them. I'm not the wise. 15:6, treasure, either material riches or perhaps a metaphor for wisdom itself. And this is confirmed by Proverbs 8:18-21. Trouble, or, quote, the income of the wicked will be destroyed, end quote, as it is in the Septuagint. I forgot the OSB Bible, that the Orthodox Study Bible uses the Septuagint. And the Didache, I think it uses both of them, or maybe it just uses one of them. Definitely uses the Septuagint, though. 15:8, the sage here draws on Israel's religious life, illustrating the covenantal framework within which biblical wisdom operates. 15:10, the way of divine wisdom in Proverbs 2:12-20, discipline will be needed to bring back this one back to God's path, as we see in verses 5 and Proverbs 12:1. Hates reproof will die. Oh, that one, Abaddon, in 15:11. Death is here portrayed as a kind of destruction from the Lord. The Lord penetrates the secrets of the grave. How much easier is it for him to know our minds, as we see in Psalm 139:23 and 24. Like Sheol, Abaddon is the abode of the dead. See Psalm 88:12, Job 26:6, 28:22, and 31:12. The widow's boundaries. Since oppression of widows did take place, as we see in Isaiah 1:17, 20 and 23, and Isaiah 10:2, this proverb must be seen as a statement of confidence that God's righteousness is finally realized. 15:26, as with verses 8 and 9, to maintain a right relationship with the Lord is the ultimate wisdom. 15:27, greedy bribes. These parallel lines suggest one whose riches are ill-gotten. Our folly usually has repercussions on those closest to us, as we see in Proverbs 1:19. 15:28, the wise and righteous recognize the need to weigh matters carefully before giving advice. 15:30, the light of the eyes. This idea seems to be that cheerful, radiant person or beautiful scene affects one's mind in the same way that good news promotes our general well-being. 1532 despises himself. Folly is self-destructive. And that is it for the Reformation Study Bible. So far, just to do like a little break before I continue to the next Bible, we have done this many Bibles so far. But anyways, if you guys want to join my Discord and hear my extended thoughts, hit the description down below. Go to the Discord link. You can hear me talk about the Mass because I go to Mass every day. Sometimes I don't make it, but I try to make it every day. And then I also have a Bible study that I do on Thursdays. It's not like this where I go in depth. It's a infusion of what I've learned in Protestantism and Catholicism, so I can make a fun Bible study for all denominations that want to come in. But let me get caught up before I move to the next point. I'm so tripping over my words right now. Christ Terry says 7689 says that's an excellent point. Caucasian Catholics created the Big Bang Theory versus believing the Bible. I'm going to need more context on that, because I don't know if you're making like a white people ruined everything point, or if you are like where you're going with that. I need more context because I'm confused here. All right. So next, my dog's ripped up parts of this Bible, so it's basically stuck in this book. But oh snap! I just realized I need to go back to the page. But we have the Life Application Study Bible. This one's an NLT Bible, and I got to quickly go back. I don't think sometimes, because this is the NLT that is actually on Bible Gateway. I'm going to put that on the screen. Just one moment. Make sure it's on there. Good. Now we're going to go to the NLT version. All right. A gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge appealing, but the mouth of a fool belches out foolishness. That's an interesting way to put that one. The Lord is watching everywhere, keeping his eye on both evil and the good. Gentle words are a tree of life. A deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. Only a fool despises a parent's discipline. Interesting. They changed it from father to parent. Whoever learns from correction is wise. There is treasure in the house of the godly, but the earnings of the wicked bring trouble. The lips of the wise give good advice. The heart of a fool has none to give. The Lord detests the sacrifice of the wicked, but he delights in the prayers of the upright. The Lord detests the way of the wicked, but he loves those who pursue godliness. Whoever abandons the right path will surely be severely disciplined. Whoever hates correction will die. Even death and destruction holds no secrets from the Lord. How much more does he know than the human heart? Mockers hate to be corrected, so they stay away from the wise. A glad heart makes a happy face. A broken heart crushes the spirit. A wise person is hungry for knowledge, while the fool feeds on trash. That's pretty brutal. For the despondent, every day brings trouble. For the happy heart, life is a continual feast. Better to have little with the fear of the Lord than to have great treasure and inner turmoil. A bowl of vegetables with someone you love is better than a steak with someone you hate. I love that phrasing. That's actually pretty funny. A hot-tempered person starts fights. A cool-tempered person stops them. A lazy person's way is blocked with briars, but the path of the upright is an open highway. Sensible children bring joy to their father. Foolish children despise their mother. Foolishness brings joy to those with no sense. A sensible person stays on the right path. Plans go wrong for lack of advice. Many advisors bring success. Everyone enjoys a fitting reply. It is wonderful to say the right thing at the right time. The path of life leads upward for the wise. They leave the grave behind. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he protects the property of widows. The Lord detests evil plans, but he delights in pure words. Greed brings grief to the whole family, but those who hate bribes will live. The heart of the godly thinks carefully before speaking. The mouth of the wicked overflows with evil words. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. A cheerful look brings joy to the heart. Good news makes for good health. If you listen to constructive criticism, you will be at home among the wise. If you reject discipline, you only harm yourself. But if you listen to correction, you grow in understanding. Fear of the Lord teaches wisdom, humility precedes honor. And immediately when I'm reading this, it's interesting. This is like when you translate a video game from Japanese to English. So Japanese is a highly contextual language, right? And this is analogous because Greek is a highly contextual language when you are translating it from the New Testament as well. But even in the Old Testament, there's contextual language in Hebrew. But when you translate a video game from Japanese to English, what happens is you lose a lot of the nuance and you lose a lot of the context or the jokes that they make within the language. And it's really interesting in that, because what's being said here is very similar to the other Bibles, but it lacks a lot of the meat. It just goes for a more simplistic understanding. Like the father's instruction, it gets changed to the parent's instruction, and that has a completely different context to it than if it was a father giving that instruction. And so somebody could easily take this and miss that context of it actually being the father, not the mother that's giving that instruction. When it comes to the rod and the staff, it's just interesting. So the Living Translation Study Bible has some study notes. Looks like a lot of them, actually. So Proverbs 15:1. Have you ever tried to argue in a whisper? Arguing with someone who insists on answering softly or generally is equally difficult. On the other hand, a rising voice and harsh words almost always triggers an angry response. To turn away from wrath and seek peace, choose quiet, gentle words. 15:3, at times it seems that God has let evil run rampant in the world, and we wonder if he even notices it. But God sees everything clearly, both the evil actions and the evil intentions lying behind them, as we see in 15:11. He is not an indifferent observer. He cares and is active in our world. Right now, his work may be unseen and unfelt, but don't give up. One day he will wipe out evil and punish the evildoers, just as he will establish the good and reward those who do his will. 15:14. What we feed our minds is more important than what we feed our bodies. The kinds of books we read, the people we talk with, the websites we visit, the music we listen to, and the videos we watch are all part of our mental diet. Be selective and discerning, because of what you feed your mind influences your total health and well-being. Develop an appetite for truth and wisdom. And I'm going to get to that later because that's a really important point. Your attitude, 15:15, your attitude colors your whole personality. You cannot always choose what happens to you. And for some, emotional stability is more difficult than for others. But no matter what, you can take steps to choose your attitude towards each situation you face. The secret to a cheerful heart is filling up your mind with thoughts that are true, pure, and lovely, as we can see in Philippians 4:8. Dwelling on good things in life, this was Paul's secret as he faced imprisonment, and it can be ours as we face the struggles of daily living. Look at your attitudes and then examine what you allow to enter your mind and what you choose to dwell on. You may need to make some changes. 15:17-19. The path of the upright, quote unquote, doesn't always seem easy, as stated in 15:19. But look at the alternatives. Hatred, as stated in 15:17, anger and dissension, as stated in 15:18, and laziness, as stated in 15:19, lead to problems that righteous, upright people do not have to face. Instead, they travel a level road built on the solid foundation of love for God. 15:22. People with tunnel vision, those locked into one way of thinking, are likely to miss the right road because they have closed their minds to any new options. We need the help of those who can enlarge our vision and broaden our perspective, seek out the advice of those who know, and know you have a wealth of experience. Wait, let me reread that. Seek out advice to those who know you and have a wealth of experience. Build a network of advisors, then be open to new ideas and weigh their suggestions carefully. Your plans will be clearer and more likely to succeed. 1528. Godly, righteous people weigh their answers. Those who are wicked don't think before speaking because they don't care about the effects of their words. When you have something to say, think about it first. Do you carefully plan your words, or do you pour out your thoughts without concern of their impact? So, 2 points that, um, that is incredibly racist, bro. That's crazy. I'll get to that in a moment, but we're gonna have a therapy session today. So, what was talking about was that actually stun locked me. I have to go back to the one thing that was being talked about before. I was not ready for that. Oh yeah, the what we feed in our bodies. So what we feed our bodies is really important. So if you are listening to a bunch of Rob Zombie and David Guetta and LMFAO, those are going to be really worldly music because a lot of the themes they're having is about going to parties, drinking, and just basically bathing yourself in that kind of stuff. The themes in the video games you're playing, the themes in the movies you're watching, the themes in the shows that you're watching, they are going to seep into your subconscious. And so it is important that you weigh, is this good for your health in what you're putting into your body? Because our physical diet is important in how we feed ourselves, but our mental and spiritual diet is also important. And so we need to have a balance in all of that. Otherwise, things can run amok. But what I was surprised about earlier, Christ Harry 7689 says, if I be honest, you are just as conniving and deceptive as your Caucasian forefathers. And yes, no other race has selfishly inflicted death, hell, and destruction on earth as you all. It's provable. Well, okay, should I just say the same thing about you and enter your forefathers? Because you have to understand, I have done a um, genetics test on my lineage to find out like where my family has traveled through the world. And there's cool like little genetic markers that you can see in your genetic makeup, and that's how they're able to at least have an idea of maybe how your family traveled. And what they found on my uh, dad's side of the family was they went from um, the they went from Africa, because that's what science has found is basically where the source of life is for humans, anyways. And went all the way towards Japan, came back around from Japan, and went all the way to Europe, and then finally went to the UK, and then went to the Americas. My mom's side of the family went through Eastern Europe and kind of snaked through Eastern Europe, and then went to the UK, and then went to the Americas. So, first of all, that's incredibly racist, okay? That's incredibly racist that I told you that I am white, native, and South Asian. And the only thing you're focusing on is the fact that I'm white. I think you need to check the way you look at people at the door, because this is one of the things that we teach in Catholicism, that you need to see others with dignity. And I'm not just white, okay? I'm a human being. And so, yes, there are many white people who have done many evil things in the past. We can easily name Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. I was going to say Pol Pot, but he's not exactly white. Whoops. But I mean, like, that's 3 white guys right there. They're different kinds of white, but they're white. They did terrible things, and those aren't good. But I don't care about that. I don't care about what your family has done in the past. I don't care about reparations, that anything that has happened in the past. I care about who are you today, and I would highly urge you to do the same thing instead of looking at me as a white man. Especially when I told you that I'm white and Asian, native and South Asian. I'm not just a white man. So I don't understand why you're saying that, and you're focusing on that so hard. But like, even if I grant you that, but let's say that I'm just a white man, why would you even say that to somebody? I don't understand that. So, anyways, we are 5 Bibles in, and this time we are going to go to the George Lambsa Bible. Whoops, there we go. So this is George Lambsa. He is pretty aware of the. He basically comes from the Aramaic Peshitta tribe customs, and he has an interesting translation. And I like reading this one because it can be strange, some of the differences that you see in this one. So this is a non-Bible gateway, so I won't put it on the screen. But Proverbs 15. A soft word turns away from wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise uses knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools pours out curses. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the good men and the bad. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life, and he who eats its fruit shall be filled with it. A fool mocks his father's instruction, but he who regards reproof is prudent. In the house of the righteous is much strength, but the crops of the wicked shall be destroyed. The lips of the wise utter knowledge, but the hearts of fools are unjust. The sacrifices of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. The way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but he loves him who follows after righteousness. The chastisement of those who do not know evil is evident, but those who hate reproof shall die. Shale and destruction are before the Lord. How much more than the hearts of men? An evil man does not love one who reproves him, neither will he walk with the wise. A merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is broken. The heart of the just seeks knowledge, but the mouth of the wicked utters evil. All the days of the poor are filled with hardships, but those who are merry of heart are of merry heart have a continual tranquility. Better is a little with reverence for the Lord than the great treasures of the wicked. Better is the dinner of vegetables where love is than fatted steer and hatred with it. A wrathful man stirs up contention, but he who is slow to anger appeases strife. The ways of the sluggard are full of thorns, but the paths of the upright are plain. A wise son makes his father happy, but a foolish son is a disgrace to his mother. A foolish man lacks understanding, but a man of understanding walks uprightly. Those who have undue respect for the counsel fail to appreciate its purpose. But in the multitude of counselors, the counsel is established. A man's joy is revealed by the word of his mouth, and he who speaks at the right time, how good is it to him? The way of life leads upward for the wise, that he may depart from the depths of Sheol. The Lord will destroy the house of the proud, but he will ensure the possession of widows. Evil thoughts are an abomination before the Lord, but pure words are pleasant to him. He who accepts a bribe destroys his own soul, but he who hates a bribe shall live. The heart of the righteous meditates in truth, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and the good heart makes the bones fat. The ear hears the reproof of life, abides among the wise. He who refuses instruction despises his own soul, but he who listens to reproof gains wisdom. Reverence for the Lord is the instruction of life, and the glory of the meek goes before him. So, I mean, that's pretty similar to a lot of the translations that we've already been reading today. I'm actually going to go for this one next. This one's going to be a little bit shorter before I get into the Catholic side of everything. So next is going to be the Interlineary Bible. And I'm not going to read the translation for this one because it's the literal translation. But I am going to be looking at the Hebrew that's on here and see if anything jumps out at me. That's what I like using this book for. I read pretty quickly, so I should be done in just a moment, guys. I'm going to quickly go back to 15 and 13. What was the one that was the... There it is. Yeah, so verse 20, when I was talking earlier about the NLT version, despises man a foolish, but foolish a father makes glad, wise a son, upcasts the righteous. So them translating it to parents is not exactly a proper translation. So finally, we get into the Catholic territory. The Great Adventure Bible. This is going to have the same type of translations that the other books I'm going to be bringing up are going to have. I'm going to focus on the study notes for those ones. But here is the RSV translation. Well, actually, I'm going to put the RSV on the screen. One moment. Looks like Christ Harry left. So, I don't know. I don't know if he didn't want to put up with my supposedly white ramblings, which still is wild. That's pretty racist. I was shocked. I mean, I'm not shocked because I'm used to it, but people just want to get so caught up in a person's race and just basically that fitting every problem that they see with the race. It's just really, it's really poor taste. It's sad. It's really sad. Well, hello. I'm glad you're back. If you're here, the counter is telling me it's 0. I stand by everything I just said, by the way, just so we're clear. I think that it's pretty racist the way that you were perceiving things. But if you are still welcome here, and if you have any other questions, you are free to ask them. I'm not going to think that you're terrible and that you need to be kicked out unless you start like spamming epithets and things like that, calling me like the C word for white people or anything like that. Then I'd be like, man, I think you need to go. I'm going to give you the trip if you guys have ever seen the game called Facade. Hey, whatever name you put in, I think it's time for you to leave. Don't worry, we'll be fine. Just leave. So Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise dispenses knowledge, but the mouths of fools pour out folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. A fool despises his father's instruction, but he who heeds admonition is prudent. In the house of the righteous there is much treasure, but trouble befalls the income of the wicked. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, not so the mind of fools. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. The way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but he loves him who pursues righteousness. There is severe discipline for him who forsakes the way. He who hates reproof will die. Sheol and Abaddon lie open before the Lord. How much more the hearts of men? A scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise. A glad heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is broken. The mind of him who understands seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but a cheerful heart has a continual feast. Better is a little fear with the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Better is dinner of herbs where love is than the fattened ox and the hatred with it. A tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets contention. The way of the sluggard is overgrown with thorns, but the path of the upright is a level highway. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish man despises his mother. Folly is a joy to him who has no sense, but a man of understanding walks aright. Without counsel, plans go wrong, but with many advisers, they succeed. To make an apt answer is a joy to a man, and a word in season, how good it is. The wise man's path leads upward to life, that he may avoid shale beneath. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but maintains the widow's boundaries. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord. The words of the pure are pleasing to him. He who is greedy for unjust gain makes trouble for his household, but he who hates bribes will live. The mind of the righteous ponders to how to answer. The mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and the good news refreshes the bones. He whose ears heeds wholesome admonition will abide among the wise. He who ignores instruction despises himself, but he who heeds admonition gains understanding. The fear of the Lord is instruction in wisdom, and humility goes before honor. I think it's interesting with this one. It's pretty close to the man never left. I think it's pretty close to the. See, there we go. Now we have the counter. It's pretty close to the KJV and the DRA versions, which I thought was pretty interesting. But there is really there's not too many notes. The only note we have for this is the tongue of the wise dispenses knowledge. Hebrews makes knowledge good, is what they wanted to note in that. Okay, guys, so that is, so far, we have gotten through these Bibles, and, oh boy, try not to drop things. And we've gotten through these Bibles. That's a lot of Bibles. We have two more. We're not going to be reading the Proverbs anymore. We're just going to be reading the study notes for the last two books. Why do you call me racist for acknowledging verified historical evidence? Oh, yeah, that's a nice try there, but you're not gonna fool me with that one. So when I'm calling you racist, let me go back and let me lay out the conversation for you guys. So fortunately, this live chat, it's only been Christ Terry talking with me. And if you guys see the live replay, because I have that set up, you can see it for yourselves on how things have been going. But make up your own minds, whoever's watching this. We start with the conversation of what denomination you are and then what ethnicity you are. And so already you're probing for genetic information that is unnecessary to this conversation. Who I am does not matter when it comes to Christianity. Who my forefathers are doesn't matter. It matters what I'm doing today and how I'm showing up for God. So then you ask a question about why a non-Caucasian should convert to a Caucasian Roman Catholic denomination, which I push back on that it's not a Caucasian denomination. It's worldwide. So there are multiple ethnicities and nationalities involved in Catholicism. But in America, there is a very strong Hispanic presence, which is why I pushed back on that. But then you're still staying on ethnicity and race, and you're talking about I think I missed this question. So is it true that Caucasian is the only race who has historically used religion to conquer the world? And no. Caucasians are not the only race who has historically used religion to conquer the world, but this goes with what I'm saying, which is like, You've asked another racial or ethnical question that is really focused on things that I don't know if it's like, where are you trying to go with this? What are you ultimately trying to get to? What is the heart of what you're trying to ask? And then even when I talk about the Big Bang Theory being made by Catholic scientists, you immediately go to, oh yes, Caucasian Catholics created the Big Bang Theory. So we're making a case here of you are super hyper focused on ethnicity and race, and it seems really unhealthy. And then immediately you go into, I'm just as conniving and deceptive as your Caucasian forefathers when you know nothing about me. And I have told you in the stream that I am white, native, and South Asian. So that seems pretty racist. So when you're talking about when you try to cope by saying, "Oh, you're basically obfuscating the argument by saying, "Why do you call me racist for acknowledging verified historical evidence?" That's not why I'm calling you racist. So I hope I've made it clear that the reason you're racist is because you're the one that's focusing on white people and weird things about white people that seem unproductive and unnecessary to this conversation. So, I mean, I'm not the one bringing up race here, is all I'm saying. It seems to be you. And it's pretty weird, bro. So for the notes, we have, wow, 16. That's crazy. So Proverbs 15:16, profit may be a motive for both the worker and the employer, but respect and justice for the individual supersedes the objective material gain. They have the CSDC 257. I am not going to find that one because I've always had trouble finding that source. 1528, Peter wrote concerning the prophet, the proper response to insult and persecution is, quote, always be prepared to make a defense to anyone who calls you to account for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and reverence, and keep your conscience clear so that when you are abused, those who revile you, your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame, end quote. And that comes from 1 Peter 3:15-16. The catechism reference here is chapter 17:16. And so that is it for the, my dogs kind of ripped this one up too, but dang it. Okay. The Didache Study Bible. I was so mad when I came home and I found out that my dogs had destroyed this. I was like, bruh, are we really doing this right now? I paid so much money for these Bibles, so I had to lock them up because my dog's a heathen. So once again, Christ Harry, when you say the Bible considers you to be the lineage of your fathers who's Caucasian, no, the lineage of my fathers is not just Caucasian. You have to understand that when you're baptized, you are made a new creation. So my forefathers are the people of the church, the children of God, the those who are part of the kingdom. It's not just white people. I'd like to remind, this is the third time that I have told you that I am white, native, and South Asian. So my forefathers are not just white. And when you continue to focus on the fact that I'm only white or only the forefathers that are white, it's really unhelpful and unproductive to this conversation. So yes, the lineage of my fathers is not just the white people. It's the South Asian people. It's the native people. It's the religious people that came before me in Catholicism. And then you say, It's not weird. Caucasians are the only ones who run from race-related Yo, you are so racist, bro. It's because it uncovers the wealth of wickedness you have all committed. Can I share specific examples? Listen, I'm going to tell you, if you are going to continue talking about whiteness, and this is going to be a trap for you. I'm just going to tell you now what I'm doing right now. I'm going to lay a trap for you where I'm going to say the statement, and I want you to use that as proof of why I'm doing exactly what my white forefathers are doing, because I'm not going to stand for this kind of racism if you're just going to keep doing that. This is unproductive and unhelpful. So, what I was going to say was that um, if you continue to focus on whiteness, when I have asked you to stop focusing on only the white parts of me, I'm going to I'm going to mute you, so you're not going to be able to comment because I am done having this conversation if we're going to, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to engage with it. I think that that is going to be more productive. You can comment whatever you want, but if you're going to put racial epithets or offensive things that don't need to be said about other people, I am going to mute you at that point. But I am willing to answer questions. I have answered every question that you have put forward, and I have told you why that's foolish what you're talking about and why it's racist. So, I mean, you can keep making it about me being white, but like, brother, what are those examples going to even do? Because you're confusing me here on the fact that Um, I am more than willing to talk about white people. I'm willing to talk about Native people. I'm willing to talk about South Asian people. I'm willing to talk about their cultures. I'm willing to talk about all of that. But again, we go back to the criticism I'm putting forward is not that it's that you're talking about it, it's that you are obsessively talking about it. And it seems like you need to go to a therapist about this because it does not seem healthy in the fact that everything I say to you, you work it into how white people are bad and white people are the problem and white people are the progenitors of blah, 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 blah. Ignoring so much of other parts of history and just like only focusing on one specific part. And I'm trying as you know, somebody who doesn't want you to keep living in this obsessive thinking, to rise above it. And I forgot Catechism 1716. I think that it's just really unnecessary, bro. You can give the examples if you want, but like I said, if they're just more about white people, it seems like you really have a hate boner for white people that you need to resolve, because I'm not going to be your effigy. I'm not going to be your poster boy for white people because I'm not just white. Like, stop being a racist, bro. So 1716 says the Beatitudes are at the heart of Jesus' preaching. They take up the promises made to be the chosen people since Abraham. Isn't that funny? The Beatitudes fulfill their promise by ordering them no longer merely to the possession of a territory, but to the kingdom of heaven. Once again, not just white. Thank you, God. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. And this comes from Matthew 5, 3 to 12. I'm going to put this right there. All right. So the study notes 15:1, soft answer, an observational proverb that advocates controlling one's temper and tongue. For similar sayings on this theme, see Proverbs 10:19, 12:16, 13:3, 14:29, 15:18, and 21:23. 15:3, in every place, affirms the omniscience of God, meaning that all human actions are seen and known by the Lord, as we see in Proverbs 5:21 and Job 34:21. even the hidden thoughts and intentions of a person's heart, as we see in Proverbs 15:11, 1 Samuel 16:17, Psalms 139:1, Hebrews 4:12-13, 15:4, a tree of life, a source of refreshment and encouragement for others. Perverseness. Here, this refers to the sins of speech that injure the reputation of others. This includes slander, rash comments, and bearing false witness against the innocent. And this is backed up by Proverbs 10:18, 11:9, 12:18, and Catechism of the Catholic Church, chapters or paragraphs 2476 to 2478. So my native roots, because you're asking Christ Harry, my native roots on my dad's side, I have Shawnee and Blackfoot, and then on my mom's side, I have Shawnee. I can't remember if I have Blackfoot or not. Oh man, I'm totally blanking. I'm totally blanking on the. I think definitely Shawnee on my mom's side. I just I feel like there's like one other that I'm mixed with. But my great grandpa. Oh, I misspoke earlier. My grandma is quarter native, and then my great grandpa was half native, and he he was ashamed of his native roots, so he changed his name, and he basically was bullied into basically hiding his native heritage, and so he wasn't able to embrace his native culture. But my grandma, because she was able to grow up in an era where it was more acceptable to be native, she strongly embraced it, and um, it's been a while since I've seen my more tribal family members. It's been a long time, actually. It's crazy how long it's been since I've seen them. But they're it's a pretty interesting culture, and my mom or my grandma used to own a store where she sold a bunch of native goods. It was pretty cool. But my mom, she was like what is it, 15th or 16th native or something like that. But she grew up in a more white culture. So for her, it wasn't, she didn't really identify with the native side of her as much, but she definitely was involved in native families. But my grandpa, he was a Marine, so he was pretty busy uh, being in the military and doing all that. But uh, my mom was a teen pregnancy, so it was a pretty hard upbringing. But then me, like I was only partially involved with my native roots and my native family, but I didn't have as much of a, as a connection that my great grandpa or my grandma had. Um, and both of them definitely looked pretty native. My mom still has some of the native looks, but I only got maybe like the Blackfoot features in me. That's really all that's more apparent than anything else. But on my dad's side, he came from Arizona, so he's got more. Well, it's kind of weird because my family's been all over the place. My grandpa came from New York and flew to Arizona, and then eventually came to Washington, where I live. But they aren't as connected to their native roots. I don't know how native they really are, like percentage wise, because my family has like a weird. My family has a weird situation on my dad's side because my there was an ancestor way back when that got adopted into the family name, the surname that I have now. So it was something that uh, was kind of passed on to me. So I got a wider surname because of that. And so that's kind of how I have the surname that I have. Am I going to tell you my surname? No. But I will tell you my baptismal name. Uh, David was my birth name, but my birth first name, but my baptismal name that I was given in baptism was Oscar Romero, my patron saint. Okay, Christ Terry, that's cool. I'm gonna have you tell me about my family history. Yeah, yeah, that's super cool. I'm gonna have you tell me about my family history because you know it so well. I feel like you're missing the point that I'm getting at is that when we just focus so much on the white ancestry that I have, that you're just like, everything else doesn't matter. I just want to paint you as white, and I want to make you into a white effigy so I can beat you up and hash out whatever therapy issues that I have with whiteness. Like, go to therapy, man. Deal with it there. Don't put it on me. Like, solve whatever issue you're having. I can't believe I just told you all that and you basically denigrated it down to, "Oh, but, like, you're no more Blackfoot than a wild caught salmon." Like, "Oh, wow, what a comeback. I'm so defeated." Oh, what an argument. You're a funny dude. Alright, so 2476 to 2478. Offenses against the truth. By the way, I'm enjoying this. I hope that, you're having as much fun as I am. I enjoy conversations like these, but I am shocked about some of the things you're saying and that you're focusing on. It's pretty crazy. False witness and perjury. When it offenses against truth, false witness and perjury. When it is made publicly, a statement contrary to truth takes on a particular gravity. Yo, the way God is speaking to you right now is crazy, brother. I hope you listen to this. When it is made publicly, a statement contrary to truth takes on particular gravity. In court, it becomes false witness. When it is under oath, it is perjury. Acts such as these contribute to condemnation of the innocent, exoneration of the guilty, or increased punishment of the accused. They gravely compromise the exercise of justice and fairness of judicial decisions. And in that, we have 276, which is confirmed. So the false witness about in court it becomes false witness is confirmed by Proverbs 19:9. And then the increased punishment of the accused is confirmed by Proverbs 18:5. 2477, respect for reputation of persons forbids every attitude and word likely to cause unjust injury. He becomes guilty. One, of rash judgment, who even tactily assumes as true without sufficient foundation the moral fault of a neighbor. Two, the detraction of who, without objectively valid reason, discloses another's faults and failings to a person who did not know them. And three, of calumny, who, by remarks contrary to the truth, harms the reputation of others and gives occasion for false judgments concerning them. So 278, this is confirmed by the Code of Catholic Law, Canon 220. And then the detraction without objectively valid reason discloses another's faults and failings to a person who did not know them is confirmed by Sirach 21:28. And then finally, 2478. To avoid rash judgment, everyone should be careful to interpret insofar as possible as his neighbor's thoughts, words, and deeds in a favorable way. Every good Christian ought to be more ready to give a favorable interpretation to another's statement than to condemn it. But if he cannot do so, let him ask how the other understands it. And if the latter understands it badly, let the former correct him with love. If that does not suffice, let the Christian try all suitable ways to bring the other to correct interpretation so that he may be saved. And this is backed up by 280. This is backed up by St. Ignatius of Loyola, Spiritual Exercises 22, and a homily that he gave. Oh boy, here we go. You go back to the Neanderthal Cro-Magnon Magnon caveman of the Caucasus Mountains. You guys didn't know your butt from your elbows, except the civilized and the cultured native people decided to educate you all. Okay, I mean that is one interpretation of history, but literally God was speaking to you right now through everything I was just reading in these paragraphs. So I would challenge you to look at me in more of a favorable way and challenge you to look at me more than just white. Because I'm done. Like, I'm done talking with you and reading your comments if all you're going to do is call me a caveman and Neanderthal and you know, a a rib aborigine of the Caucasus Mountains and all this other stuff. Like, you can keep calling me it. It's fine, man. That's fine if you want to call me that. Just know that, like, we could have a much better working relationship here and a much better conversation if you let all of that go. 15:6. Behind this statement is an ancient theory of retribution, the belief that God's just recompense for saints and sinners is metered out in this life as prosperity, treasure, and adversity or trouble. Additional revelation beginning in the Old Testament and coming to the fullness in the New Testament will show that the divine rewards and punishment are also given after death. Wisdom 3:1-4, Dan 12:2, Matthew 25:46. All back this up. Moreover, the prospect of treasure, quote unquote, is for the righteous. For the righteous is not restricted to material wealth, but can also denote spiritual blessings, as we see in Matthew 6:19-21 and 2 Corinthians 8:9. 15:8. Sacrifice of the wicked, unacceptable to the Lord, who expects our worship to be joined to a contrite heart and a commitment to live by his laws. Scripture insists that the liturgical and ethical aspects of life must be in harmony. Otherwise, the Lord is not honored by our praise and adoration. 1 Samuel 15:22, Psalm 50:23, Psalm 51:16-17, Isaiah 1:11-17, Amos 15:21-24. Prayer of the upright. The wise man is also a prayerful man. 15:9, pursues righteousness, strives to observe the Lord's commandments. Deuteronomy 6:25 and Luke 1:6 back this up. Jesus affirms the essential message of this proverb in the fourth beatitude, and Matthew 5:6. 15:10, severe discipline administered by God. 3 backed up by Proverbs 3:11-12. The way, the path of the upright living. 15:11, the Sheol and Abaddon. Two Hebrew terms associated with the netherworld of the dead, the latter meaning destruction, quote unquote, backed up by Proverbs 27:20 and Job 28:22. Even the realm of deceased souls, thought to be hidden deep in the earth, is visible to the penetrating eyes of the Lord, as we see in Job 26:6. How much more, the Proverbs reason, are the secrets of men known by the Lord. 15:15. A cheerful heart, one that rises above circumstances and finds joy in the Lord, such as Israel experienced during its religious feasts, as we see in Leviticus 23:40, 2 Chronicles 30:21 and 26. 15:16. A little, having modest means and possessions. Blessedness lies not in great wealth, but in a living relationship with God. For similar sayings, see 16:7, Proverbs 16:7, 17:1, and Psalm 37:16. 15:19, an overgrown, a sign of laziness in this case, the refusal to put forth the effort to live honorably and wisely, as we see in Proverbs 24:30-31, level highway. The result of personal diligence and commitment to clear away obstacles that stand in the way of following wisdom. And the catechism paragraphs are 24:27-24:28. Yeah. No, that's actually that's a really good question. That is I appreciate that you're asking this kind of question. So I'm asking you serious. So Christ Harry 7689 says, I'm asking you seriously, you being a Roman, me being a Catholic, I'm part of the Roman Rite, but I'm a Catholic. Catholic means universal. Would God speak to the very people who mercilessly beat, humiliated, crucified, then pierced his only begotten Son? Yes. So easy, easy answer I can give you. The slave that had his debts forgiven by the king, Bible verse. Matthew 8:21-35. Yes, that is the one. 18:21-35. I'm going to put that on the screen now. Now I'm not going to read this because I've read enough and I still have more reading to do, but what I am going to do is I just want you to see it on the screen so you can have an idea of what God's forgiveness and mercy looks like. And it's also going to be topical to how you've been treating me over this live stream. So you can see here, you can read it yourself if you want. But basically, you have key parts to this story here, right? You have a servant that wanted to settle. So the king wanted to settle the account with the servant and basically is like, I forgive your debts. And there's no way he could have paid it. And this is the same sacrifice that Jesus Christ made on the cross in his passion, which wasn't just the cross, it was everything leading up to the cross. You know, how he was mercilessly beaten by his own people and all these other things. And then what would happen is he would be put on the cross, he would die on the cross, go down to hell, ascend into heaven, and have power over death. And then in him doing that, he would come back down and resurrect after the third day. And he would then eventually lead into his ascension, which would lead into the consular or the Holy Spirit coming to us. And by that happening, we were given the power to be free and not just, have to pray in one temple. We could pray anywhere and have a temple anywhere. And we were neither Jew nor Gentile nor Scythian, barbarian, or free. We were all one loaf, all one people. And so, that's partly why when you say that, I'm just white and you want to focus on the white ancestors, I'm a new creation because I was baptized in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So because of that, what has happened is now I am part of the kingdom. That is, I've been adopted into sonship. But anyways, this story specifically, after this servant had been forgiven of this debt that was unpayable, this was like a lifetime of debt that he was unpayable. He then goes to another servant and unjustly tries to take money from them to pay them what they owe and doesn't give them the patience or the respect or the dignity that they deserve in that situation. And because the other servants told on him and basically were like, hey, the guy that you just forgave debts of, he just basically would not forgive the debts of another person, which we see in the Our Father prayer. Forgive us our debts and forgive those who have debts against us, or forgive us our trespasses and forgive those who trespass against us in the Our Father prayer. So all this is to basically say that when you do not forgive someone, when Christ has given you endless mercy to forgive everybody who comes to him, his mercy is endless, then you are not going to be forgiven. Because to what, if you're not going to forgive people, you don't deserve to be forgiven. You already don't deserve to be forgiven, and now you're like sticking in the pin even further. It's just not right. So to answer your question, me being a Catholic, not a Roman, but a Catholic, a child of God, would God speak to the very people who mercilessly beat, humiliated, crucified, and pierced his only begotten Son? Yes. He's going to speak to everyone. He's going to speak to the Muslims. He's going to speak to the Jews. He's going to speak to the Gentiles. He's going to speak to the atheists. He's going to speak to anybody. Anybody that is willing to hear God, he will speak to. But even those who aren't willing to listen to God, he will still try to win them over and speak to them and do certain things that are going to turn them to their side. And he will even use them in the plan of salvation in trying to bring salvation about other people. So yes, he's going to interact with a bunch of people, even if they did the unthinkable in harming the Son and literally killing the Son with the terrible treatment that he was given. 27, 24, 27 to 24, 28. Economic activity and social justice. Human work proceeds directly from the persons created in the image of God and called to prolong the work of creation by subduing the earth both with and for one another. Hence, work is a duty. Quote, if anyone will not work, let him not eat, end quote. Work honors the Creator's gifts and the talents received from him. It can also be redemptive by enduring the hardship of work in union with Jesus, the carpenter of Nazareth, and the one crucified on Calvary. Man collaborates in a certain fashion with the Son of God in his redemptive work. He shows himself to be a disciple of Christ by carrying the cross daily in the work he is called to accomplish. Work can be a means of sanctification and a way of animating earthly realities with the Spirit of Christ. So the notes for this one, 210. Human work, us being prolonged to directly proceeding from the persons of the image of God and prolonging the work of creation by subduing the earth, both with and for one another. This is backed up by 2 Thessalonians 3:10 and confirmed by 1 Thessalonians 4:11. The quote, if anyone will not work, let him not eat, comes from Genesis 3:14 to 19. By enduring the hardship of work is confirmed by what is LE? I cannot remember. LE. This one, not there. Is it here? No. There it is. Okay. I'm going to mark that. So LE is going to be laborium extern. I have not actually read this one. That's interesting. I see you don't read and or believe the OT. Are you going to tell me some retelling of the OT where white people are terrible or something like that? I'm looking forward to this one. Go ahead and tell me why I don't OT. You're talking in vagaries. Actually, let me get that set up first before I switch over to it, just to make sure I actually find it. Laborium. Okay. I found it. So it's going to be LE. What's LE? So by enduring the hardship of work, and that's going to be LE 27. Human work in the light of the cross and the resurrection of Christ. There is yet another aspect of human work, an essential dimension of it that is profoundly imbued with the spirituality based on the gospel. All work, whether manual or intellectual, is inevitably linked with toil. The book of Genesis expresses it in a truly penetrating manner. The original. I don't know if God is like being really sassy with you, Christ Terry, because you were talking about not understanding the the Old Testament, and then it's like, bam, here's the Old Testament. The original blessing of work contained in the very mystery of creation and connected with man's elevation as the image of God is contrasted with the curse that sin brought with it. Quote, curse is the ground because of you. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. This toil, connected with work, marks the way of human life on earth and constitutes the announcement of death. Quote, in the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. End quote. Almost as an echo of these words, the author of one of the wisdom books says, quote, then I considered that all the hands had done and toil I had spent in doing it, end quote. There is no one on earth who could not apply these words to himself. In a sense, the final word of the gospel on this matter, as on others, is found in the paschal mystery of Jesus Christ. It is here that we must answer to these problems so important for the spirituality of human work. The paschal mystery contains the cross of Christ and his obedience unto death, which the apostles contrast with the disobedience from which the beginning has burdened man's history on earth. It also contains the elevation of Christ, who by the means of death on a cross returns to his disciples in the resurrection with the power of the Holy Spirit. Sweat and toil, which work necessarily involves the present condition of the human race, present the Christian and everyone who is calling to follow Christ and with the possibility of sharing and loving in the work that Christ came to do. This work of salvation came about through suffering and death on the cross. By enduring the toil of work in union with Christ crucified for us, man in a way collaborates with the Son of God for the redemption of humanity. He shows himself a true disciple of Christ by carrying the cross in his turn every day in the activity that he is called upon to perform. Christ, undergoing the death itself for all us sinners, taught us the example that we too must shoulder the cross which the world and flesh inflict upon us, those who pursue peace and justice, end quote. It was all one quote. Okay. But also at the same time, quote, appointed Lord by his resurrection and given all authority in heaven and on earth, Christ is now at work in the people's hearts through the power of his Spirit. He animates, purifies, and strengthens those noble longings too, by which the human family strives to make its life more human and render the whole earth submissive to this goal, end quote. The Christian finds in human work a small part of the cross of Christ and accepts the same spirit of redemption and accepted his cross for us. In work, thanks to the light that us from the resurrection of Christ, we always find a glimmer of new life, of the new good, as if it were an announcement of, quote, the new heavens and the new earth, end quote, the in which man and the world participates precisely through the toil that goes with work. Toil and never without it. Through toil and never without it. On the one hand, this confirms the indispensability of the cross in the spirituality of human work. On the other hand, the cross, which this toil constitutes, reveals a new good springing from work itself, from work understood in depth and in all aspects, never apart from the work. Is this new good the fruit of humanity work already a small part of what that quote new earth end quote where justice dwells? If it is true that many of the forms of toil go with the man's work are a small part of the cross of Christ, what is this relationship of the new good to the resurrection of Christ? The council seeks to reply to this question also, drawing light from the very sources of the revealed word. Quote, therefore, while we are warned that it profits a man nothing if he gains the whole world and loses himself, confirmed by Luke 9:25. The expectation of the new earth must not weaken, but rather stimulate our concern for cultivating this one. For here grows the body of a new human family, a body of which even now is able to give some kind of foreshadowing of every new age. Earthly progress must be carefully distinguished from growth of Christ's kingdom. Nevertheless, to the extent of the former can contribute to the better ordering of human society. It is a vital concern of the kingdom of God. End quote. In these present reflections devoted to human work, we have tried to emphasize everything seemed essential to it, since it is through man's labor that not only, quote, the fruits of our activity, end quote, but also, quote, human dignity, brotherhood, and freedom, end quote, must increase on earth. Let the Christian who listens to the word of the living God, uniting work with prayer, know the place that his work has not only in earthly progress, but also in the development of the kingdom of God, to which all are called through the power of the Holy Spirit and through the word of the gospel. In concluding these reflections, I gladly impart the apostolic blessing to all of you, venerable brothers and beloved sons and daughters. I prepared this document for the publication on the 15th of May last, on 15 May last, Old Language, on the 19th anniversary of the encyclical Rerum Novarum, but it is only after my stay in the hospital that I've been able to revise it definitively. And this was given at Castel Gilfondo on the 14th day of September, the feast of his triumph of cross in the year 1981, the third of the pontificate. And then I'm going to pull up the references real quick. Multitasking a little too much. Laborium externus. Laborium externus. Not that kind of. Laborum externus. Bruh. Fine, I'll spell it. Okay, so the references. All right. So the references are going to be, I'm just going to go down. So 81. This is from Genesis 17. 82 is from Ecclesiastes 2:11. 83 is, oh wait, no, 82 is, the last quote is from Genesis 3:19, and then this quote 83 is Ecclesiastes 2:11. 84 is confirmed by Romans 5:19. 85 is confirmed by John 17:4. 86 is confirmed by Luke 9:23. 87, the quote comes from the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council, Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World, Gaudium et Spes, number 33, AAS 58 in 1966, pp. 1055 to 1056. 88, the quote comes from 2 Peter 3:13 and Revelation 21:1. 89 is confirmed by 2 Peter 3:13. 90, the quote comes from the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council, Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World, Gaudium et Spes, 39. AAS 58 in 1966, p. 1057. And then 91 is backed up by IBID, and I don't know what that stands for. But then we still have more. In 2013, he shows himself to be a disciple of Christ by carrying the cross daily in the work he's called to accomplish. It is confirmed by Laborum Exercense, number 6. Number 6. Good night to number 9. Good night, number 12. Work in the subjective sense. Man as the subject of work. In order to continue our analysis of work, an analysis linked with the word of the Bible telling man that he is to subdue the earth, we must concentrate our attention on the work in the subjective sense, much more than we did on the objective significance, barely touching upon the vast range of problems known intimately and in detail to the scholars in various fields, and also, according to their specializations, to those who work. If the words of the book of Genesis to which we refer in this analysis of our speak of work in the objective sense in an indirect way, they also speak only indirectly of the subject of work. But what they say is a very eloquent and is full of great significance. Man has to subdue the earth and dominate it because, as the quote, image of God, end quote, he is a person. That is to say, a subjective being capable of acting in a planned and rational way, capable of deciding about himself, and with a tendency to self realization. As a person, man is therefore the subject of work. As a person, he works, he performs various actions belonging to the work process, independently of their objective content. These actors must all serve to realize his humanity, to fulfill the calling to be a person that is his by reason of his very humanity. The principal truths concerning this theme were recently recalled by the Second Vatican Council in the Constitution Gaudium et Spes, especially in chapter 1, which is devoted to man's calling. And so this dominion, quote unquote, spoken of in the biblical text being mediated upon here, refers not only to the objective dimension of work, but at the same time introduces us to an understanding of its subjective dimension, understood as a process whereby man and the human race subdue the earth. Work corresponds to this basic biblical concept only when throughout the process man manifests himself and confirms himself as the one who dominates, quote unquote. This dominion, in a certain sense, refers to a subjective dimension even more than to the objective one. This dimension conditions the very ethical nature of work. In fact, there is no doubt that the human work has an ethical value of its own, which clearly and directly linked to the fact that one who carries it out as is a person, a conscious and free subject, that is to say, a subject that decides about himself. This truth, when in sense constitutes the fundamental and perennial heart of Christian teaching on human work, has had and continues to have primary significance for the formulation of the important social problems characterizing the whole ages. The ancient world introduced its own typical differentiation of people in diases according to the type of work done. Work which demanded from the worker the exercise of physical strength, the work of the muscles and hands, was considered unworthy of free men, and therefore given to slaves. By broadening certain aspects that already belonged to the Old Testament, Christianity already brought about a fundamental change of ideas in this field. Taking the whole content of the gospel message at its point of departure, especially the fact that one who, while being God, became like us in all things, devoted most of the years of his life on the earth to manual work at a carpenter's bench. This circumstance constitutes in itself the most eloquent, quote, gospel of work, end quote, showing that the basis for determining the value of human work is not primarily the kind of work being done, but the fact that the one who is doing it is a person. The sources of dignity of work are sought primarily in the subjective dimension, not in the objective one. Such a concept practically does away with the very basis of the ancient differentiation of people into classes according to the kind of work done. This does not mean that from the objective point of view, human work cannot and must not be rated and qualified in any way. It also means the primary basis of the TBE value of work is man himself, who is its subject. This leads immediately to the very important conclusion of the ethical nature, however true it may be that man is destined to work and be called to it. In the first place, work is, quote, for man, end quote, and not man, quote, for work, end quote. Through this conclusion, one rightly comes to recognize the preeminence of the subject meaning of work over the objective one. Given this way of understanding things and presupposing that different sorts of work that people can do have a greater or lesser objective value, let us try nevertheless to show that each sort is judged above all by the measure of the dignity of the subject of work, that is to say, the person, the individual who carries it out. On the other hand, independently of the work every man does, and presupposing that this work constitutes a purpose at times a very demanding one of his activity, this purpose does not possess a definitive meaning in itself. In fact, in the final analysis, it is always man who is the purpose of the work. Whatever work that is done by man, even if common scale of value rates it as the merest, quote, service, unquote, as the most monotonous, even most alienating work. And the only, I think I was 11. Yeah, the only footnote is 11. And in 11, this is confirmed by Hebrews 2:17 and backed up by Philippians 2:5-8. Okay. Okay, so we're getting back to Christ Terry 7689. I see you don't read and or believe the OT, which is what I was reading earlier. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do it in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith the Lord. Ezekiel 25:14. Isaiah 34:8 KJV, for it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of the recompense for the controversy of Zion. Isaiah 13:6 KJV, howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as destruction from the Almighty. And what kind of exegesis are you trying to do? What is the interpretation that you're trying to pull from that? And how do you know that that is the truth, whatever it is that you pull from it? That is what I would like to know from you. So Proverbs 15. Oh, I didn't get done. Oh, shoot. I still have one more. So where was I? 12, 13. And it was just 27 to 26 to 27, I think, right? 26 27 to 28. So, paragraph 24-28, in work, the person exercises and fulfills in the part of potential inscribed in his nature. The primordial value of labor stems from man himself, its authority, and its beneficiary work for man, not man for work. Everyone should be able to draw from work the means of providing his life and that of his family and serving the human community. And 214, so work is for man, not man for work, is confirmed by CA 32 and 34. CA. Centesimus annus. Can't spell. So centesimus annus. Centesimus annus PDF. Get the footnotes ready. So Centesimus annus 32 and 34. 32 and 34. So in our time, particular, and let me make sure it's on. Okay. In our time, in particular, there exists another form of ownership which is becoming no less important than land, possession of know-how, technology, and skill. The wealth of the industrialized nations is based much more on this kind of ownership than on natural resources. Mention has just been made of the fact that people work with each other, sharing a, quote, community of work, in quote, which embraces ever-widening circles. A person who produces something other than for his own use generally does so in order that others may use it after they have paid a just price, mutually agreed upon through free bargaining. It is precisely the ability to foresee both needs of the others and combinations of productive factors most adapted to satisfying those needs that constitutes another impatient source of wealth in modern society. Besides, many goods cannot be adequately produced through the work of an isolated individual. They require the cooperation of many people in working towards a common goal. Organizing such a productive effort, planning its duration and time, making sure it corresponds in a positive way to the demands of which it must satisfy, and taking the necessary risks. All this, too, is a source of wealth in today's society. Whoa, too many screens. Okay, there we go. The role of the disciplined and creative human work, and an essential part of that work, initiative and entrepreneurial ability, becomes increasingly evident and decisive. This process, which throws practical light on truth and about the person which Christ has constantly affirmed, should be viewed carefully and favorably. Indeed, besides the earth, the man's principal resource is man himself. His intelligence enables him to discover the earth's productive potential and many different ways in which human needs can be satisfied. It is his disciplined work in close collaboration with others that makes possible the creation of ever more extensive working communities, which can be relied upon to transform man's natural and human environments. Important virtues are involved in this process, such as diligence, industriousness, prudence in undertaking reasonable risks, reliability, and fidelity in interpersonal relationships, as well as the courage in carrying out decisions which are difficult and painful but necessary, both for the overall working of a business and in meeting possible setbacks. The modern business economy has positive aspects. Its human basis is human freedom, exercised in the economic field, just as it is exercised in many other fields. Economic activity is indeed but one sector in a great variety of human activities, and is like every other sector, it includes the right to freedom, as well as the duty of making responsible use of freedom. But it is important to note that there are specific differences between the trends of modern society and those of the past, even recent past, whereas at one time the decisive factor of the production was the land and later capital, understand as a total complex of instruments of production. Today, the decisive factor is increasingly man himself, that is, his knowledge, especially his scientific knowledge, his capacity for interrelated and compact organization, as well as his ability to perceive the needs of others and satisfy them. So the footnote we have is only 70, and 70 is confirmed in encyclical letter Solicitudo Rei Solalis 15 Loc Crit Kit CIT 528 to 531. Ooh. All right, and then 34. Double check. Yep, 34. I'm so happy it's short. It would appear that on the level of an individual nations and of international relations, the free market is the most efficient instrument for utilizing resources and effectively responds to needs. But this is true only to those needs which are solvent, quote unquote, insofar as they are endowed with purchasing power, and for those resources which are marketable, quote unquote, insofar as they are capable of obtaining a satisfactory price. But there are many human needs which find no place on the market. It is strictly duty of justice and truth not to allow fundamental human needs to remain unsatisfied, and not to allow those burdened by such needs to perish. It is also necessary to help those needy people to acquire expertise, to enter the circle of exchange, and to develop their skills in order to make the best use of their capabilities and resources. Even prior to the logic of fair exchange of goods and forms of justice appropriate to it, there exists something which is due to man because he is man, by reason of his lofty dignity. Inseparable from that required something, quote unquote, is the possibility to survive and at the same time to make an active contribution to the good of humanity. And that was the only reference for that one. I'm going to skip any more catechism paragraphs. I'm just going to finish the last little bits that we have here and just move on to wrapping everything up, because I'm starting to lose my energy at this point. So I'm going to put the catechism down. Oh, okay. So Proverbs 15:20, a wise son, a variation of the proverb at 10:1. 1522 counsel on the importance of wise advice. See Proverbs 11, 14, 12, 15, and 24, 16. 1523, a word in season, a thoughtful and well-timed comment, as we see in Proverbs 25, 11. Proverbs 15, 24, upward to life. One of the blessings of the wise conduct is prolonged life, as we see in Proverbs 3, 16, 9, and 9, 11. Death is thereby delayed, and one avoids for a time the netherworld of Sheol. One's belief in an afterlife had clearly formed in the theology of Israel, thanks to the additional revelation, saying such as this suggested the idea that wisdom leads to the eternal life in heaven. 1525, widows. The Lord's concern for widows is frequently stated in the Bible, as we see in Exodus 22:22, Deuteronomy 10:18, Psalm 68:5, Psalm 146:9, Sirach 35:14, and James 1:27. Boundaries. Stone landmarks used to identify property lines. Moving them was tantamount to stealing another's land, as we see in Proverbs 22:28, 23:10, Deuteronomy 19:14, and expanded upon in Catechism paragraph 2403. 1527. He who is greedy, a reference to the corrupt judges who accept bribe money. 1529. Prayer of the righteous, the intercession of power. The powerful is gained in favorable response from the Lord, as we see in James 5:16. 1530, light of the eyes, the bright and exuberant look of the one who delivers the good news. 1533, fear of the Lord, the first step to living wisely. Humility goes before honor. A humble estimation of self is an essential virtue of wisdom, as we see in Proverbs 3:34 and 18:12, and leads eventually to one's exaltation, as we see in Matthew 23:12 and 1 Peter 5:6. The opposite truth is stated in the proverb, quote, pride goes, ... before a fall, end quote, as we see in Proverbs 16:18. And that is everything, guys. I forgot to say earlier, but this was the Catholic Study Bible. So that was a exhausting read, but we are going to finish up on any comments that are left, and any conversations that we got to finish. Okay. Are we serious right now? Christ Harry 7689 says, you said Christ was coming to talk to Muslims. No, no, that is not what I said. That's not even close to what I said. Bro, I don't know what it is that you take one thing and you're like, I'm going to run with it and take a mile with it and say something that is a complete straw man. But it is impressive, and God bless you for your ability to warp what I'm saying so strongly. You said Christ was coming to talk to Muslims, atheists, Catholics, I guess devil worshippers as well. Well, this says he's coming back with a real vengeance on his mind. That's the truth. Christ Harry. What I said is he's going to speak to Muslims. He's going to speak to atheists. He's going to speak to non-believers. Even though they can't hear him, he's going to speak to them in a way that's going to turn them from their ways. And then I said that he's going to use them in the plan of salvation to bring salvation to others. And then, with everything else that I was talking about around that area, what I was trying to say was basically not that they're going to be kept from the destruction and the vengeance that the Lord is going to bring, but it goes with the endless mercy that I'm talking about. All your sins can be forgiven in baptism. So for all the sins that you would have to pay in the Levitical law with your life or with the sacrifice of animals, that is gone from the Old Testament. In the New Testament, the Lord is the Paschal Lamb. He is the new infinite lamb that is sacrificed for our sins, and is why we no longer have to sacrifice animals and have to sacrifice ourselves and stone people. We now, Christ pays about four of the 5 or 6 the sin offerings. Christ's sacrifice makes up for most of those offerings, and for what his sacrifice doesn't complete, quote unquote, with what I just said, the giving of the Eucharist, of giving his body and blood to his followers, is what satisfies the rest of the sin offerings, of the different offerings of sin, which I will pull those up right now, because I'm totally blanking on what the sin offerings. The sin offering is one of them. That's why I'm saying I need to pull it up. What are the 5 different offerings for sin in the Levitical books? So the burnt offering, the grain offering, the peace offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering. And Christ makes up for the burnt offering, the peace offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering and the grain offering. But the guilt offering specifically we see through confession, and that is the modern adaptation of the guilt offering that Christ provides to us, where we confess our sins and we deal with that part. But the grain offering is the Eucharist, the body and blood that Christ offers up to us, and that is that fulfills the grain offering. But the sacrifice on the cross essentially makes up for all of that. So it's all encompassed together. But what the reason I'm going into this is I'm just trying to point out how stupid it is to say that. It's really dumb because you are taking a straw man of what I'm saying and going way too far and saying something that I'm not saying at all. And I just this is why you and I have been going back and forth, because I've constantly had to correct what you're saying and basically be like, hey man, it sounds like you're being really unproductive. Hey man, it sounds like you're focusing too much on ethnicity or race. Hey man, it sounds like you are taking the wrong perception of what I'm saying. And it's just really foolish. So God bless you regardless. But I don't have anything else to say. There is no way I'm going to be kept from God's judgment. I used to be a heathen. I used to be an atheist for most of my life. I was part of the homosexual community. I have had boyfriends. I've slept with men and women. I have done a lot of things that Christ probably should put me in hell for. And if Christ decides that I'm going to hell for those things that I've done and I am not forgiven for those things, I accept that judgment completely. I totally get it. But I'm not going to be kept from that judgment. Only Christ gets to make that decision, not me. But that is everything, guys. If you guys want to talk to me more directly, or you want to hear my extended thoughts on the Mass, or you want to come into the Bible studies that I do on Thursday that aren't this committed, click the description down below. Go to the Discord. You can hear my thoughts when I go to Mass on what I'm thinking or what's going on. You can join in for the Bible studies on Thursdays, 1 p.m. PDT, like I was probably just saying, where I infuse what I've learned in Protestantism and Catholicism and make a fun combination to make a fun experience for all denominations. And then, yeah, that's it. That's all I can think of. Unless you have something else you want to say, Christ Harry, because you've been my co-host for this whole stream. It's okay. You can call me a nerd. Look at this nerd. Give it about 10 more seconds for them to type something before I close up the stream. It's been fun going back and forth with you, though, Christ Harry. I've been having... I know that I probably come off as like overly emotional or triggered at times. I'm a very passionate man, so I had fun. There was definitely some things that you said that put me off, and I was like, what? What are you saying that? Yeah, I'm done with this live. That's about it. You can come to the Discord if you want to say more or talk to me directly, but God bless you guys. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace be with you all. And